Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you all for joining me today. You should be able to hear me just fine, but let me know if there is any trouble with the audio. I'm glad to see everyone in chat. Thank you to my mods. Thank you to everyone who came to join us. Thanks to my patrons for stopping by. Thank you to those of you who it's evening and not morning. I'm operating 2 hours past my normal time zone anyway, so it's 11 a.m. where I am, but I'm used to it being 9 a.m. So I am excited to try and hit a wide range of time zones. I know Europe has a hard time getting to the later streams. There's Jennifer. Hello. How are you? Today we're going to be taking a look at our QoR Watercolors, doing a really chill swatch with me. It's been a little while since we've done a swatch with me, and this one is going to be a little bit different than my past ones. It's still on Arches paper, since we want the nice quality paper that's cotton here. But since I am not at home, I decided to put little dots of all the pigments onto the card. So I don't normally do that. I usually just paint them out right away from like a pan or something, but I only have my introductory sets, which are here, plus a few extra pans. But we have a very generous, very kind viewer who also has a channel. Her name is Jenny Granberry. I've put a link in the description below. She sent me what she called samples of like 40 tubes of paint. So huge thank you to Jenny for sending those. Sorry, I was looking at Jennifer's name in the chat. And I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to do this. So make sure you go ahead and check out her channel. Thank her for sending those this way. She also sent me one of these brochures. So I'm going to be referencing this while we do our swatch with me. I don't have the pigment names written on the sheet itself, but here it has all the pigment information, so I'll read that out as we go. If you're not familiar with QoR, they are a watercolor that uses a little bit of a different binder from other watercolors. I do have a link to a older video that I did in the description below for a review on QoR, where I did a watercolor chart, as well as I compared dried paint to tube paint. I don't know how it really got started, but there's a claim on the internet saying that QoR is not as vibrant from dried paint as it is from the tube, and I just don't think that's true based on my own personal findings. I think it's just like any other paint that you have to re-wet from a tube. It's a little harder to get going, but that's true of every brand. So anyway, there's a lot of information here. There's a legend, so they have really detailed swatches. If you go onto the QoR's website, where it'll show you a ton of different watercolor tests. I don't think any other brand does it better than they do in terms of showing you their information online. And I think that's it, unless you guys have any questions before I get started. They are a really, what is going on with the screen? They are a really high flow paint. I believe someone just mentioned that in the chat. And they like to jump across the page a lot. We're not going to see a lot of that because these squares are so small, but you'll get to see the vibrancy, you'll get to see the rewettability, and I think it'll be lots of fun. I agree with Faith. The Quin Magenta is one of my favorite colors from them. It's absolutely stunning. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'll try and glance up at chat as much as I can. I'm by myself today. And Jennifer, I forgot to get you QoR samples after our zoo visit. I mentioned that, but I know we're anxious to get you home and everything, so we'll have to get you some samples next time we're together. So you can already see they re-wet really well. I'm using a Jackson's 1/2" flat brush from their Studio Synthetic line, and I had to replace my other 1/2" flat brush because it died. We did too many swatches, guys. Oh, awesome timing, Heidi. You have the high chroma set coming in. I absolutely adore those colors. Those are these ones here plus Quin Magenta, which is the only color I believe that's repeated in more than one of their introductory sets. You should be able to pick up most of their introductory sets without much duplication. Yeah, Jennifer, I guess we'll just have to see each other again. So the first color that I swatched out is Nickel Yellow, and that is made from PY53. I actually really like the hue of that color. Now, of course, I don't have my big swatch binder with me here, so I'm not going to be able to do any of those comparisons today. But from what I've seen, this looks like possibly a tiny bit warmer version of that color. I crossed over my line, which means I'm going to get a bleed on the next square. The second color here is definitely more of what we would consider like a lemon yellow. This is Cadmium Yellow Primrose. It does look a little bit more vibrant here on the paper than it does in their binder here. Maybe it doesn't. On camera, it doesn't seem to look different. In person, it does. It's brighter, more vibrant. Is Tori here? Tori's here. Hello. I missed you earlier in the chat. I mean, I also missed you in general. You're on vacation. Are you back from vacation? Or are you popping in from Disney? Oh my goodness, I'm so honored. Joe mentions, was it Joe? Yeah, Joe mentions that PY53 is more useful in acrylic and in oils than in watercolors. I haven't used it in either of those, so I'm not sure, but you guys know my experience with oils and acrylics thanks to the Let's Learn series. Next is Hansa Yellow Light. So this is what's typically known as our more common lemon yellow, really bright, really vibrant. Clearly I put too much paint on my paper and did not need that much. Is it a nice crisp image for you all watching? I want to make sure you guys can see. I know there's a little bit of a glare, so I'll pull up the paper every now and again. Ian asks, have I tried Jackson's quill range? No, this is the first Jackson's brush that I have tried. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt your Twitch stream. It's good to see you, though. I'm glad to have you here. I'm sure everyone else is, too. If you don't know Tori's channel or Jennifer's channel, they both have channels as well. You can click on their names, and I believe you can right or left click and go to their pages. Tori does beautiful loose watercolor work and just has a great relationship with brushstrokes. Art Wisps asks if anyone else is doing the 100 Eyes challenge. If you don't know about that, I'm going to show you guys at the end of this stream what I've been working on for the 100 Eyes challenge, and you can go check out everything else over on Instagram. Otto's here. Welcome, Otto. Thanks for coming. Chat's moving so fast right now. I'm trying to skim. Next up is Bismuth Vandate Yellow, which is PY184. This is a fairly new to me color, but I had it in another brand. I can't remember which one at the time, but it's a nice bright yellow as well. Otto, thanks for linking Tori's channel. Otto has a channel. Jennifer has a channel. All the channels. Heidi asks, well, she says first, maybe not 100, but I'm taking a Skillshare class right now. Are there even 100? Heidi, I just posted before I jumped on here that I was actually having a hard time narrowing down my choices to 100 eyes. I thought I would have a hard time picking enough that were interesting as well. But over on Instagram, you guys told me that you wanted to see groupings of animals. So the first day I did canines and felines, and then I did other feliforms and caniforms. The second day I did primates. Yesterday I did ungulates. Today I'm doing other types of mammals, and I can't narrow it down. There are so many awesome animal eyes to do, so you definitely won't be running short. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. think I'm pretty much caught up. Have fun in class. Thanks for stopping by. The stream will be a replay after it's done. And just so you guys all know in chat, the chat will be available as well. So just make sure you're careful with what you enter there. Zara Taro asks, I'm in a dilemma, not sure whether or not to get Burnt Umber from Daniel Smith or Mars Brown from Schminke. Can't tell much of a difference between the online swatches. They're actually really different. I don't have my Schminke paints here with me, but the Mars Brown is like a more muted, more opaque brown, and the Burnt Umber is going to be richer and deeper in color. Thanks, Jennifer, for linking Otto after she linked everyone else. Yes, Otto, I made your card at the same time I made my card. So I hope that you enjoy yours. Otto has, if you are new to my channel, she has sent me so many amazing things over the last year between my Sennelier dot card and just, she's a very kind soul that has a lot of art supplies and a lot of love to share. So I wanted to return the favor. Yeah, Heidi, you can take as long as you want with the challenge. For me, I wanted to challenge myself to do like an actual challenge because I haven't done a full Inktober or anything like that. But you can do it one by one. You could just do one eye a day for 100 days. Some people are doing 5 eyes a day for 20 days. I will tell you, I am having a hard time keeping up. 10 eyes a day is a lot if you want to do anything else. So... I'm just reading chat, sorry. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so Cad Yellow Medium is this one here. I didn't have the benzimidalone, and I'm sure I said that wrong, yellow, which is PY154. This is actually one of my favorite yellows. I thought it was kind of funny that I don't have it, but maybe someday I can add it to the chart. Cadmium yellow is PY35. Arulian Modern, Otto might be interested in this one. Interesting combination though. It's PW6 and PY150. Interesting. If you have a question, try and type the word question in caps before your question so I don't miss it. There is a question that says, do you prefer Dan's old sap green over the new one? I mean, I love the old one. The old one's my favorite, but out of all of the sap greens that I've tried, their new one is definitely my favorite of all the other sap greens. So I would still stick with Daniel Smith for sap green. Did I see we have someone from South Africa? That's amazing. I was just thinking, you know, Facebook stories, they like remind you. I got back from Africa 6 years ago and I can't believe it's been that long. I want to go back so bad. I was in South Africa and Botswana for that trip. Oh, so beautiful. Cosmic, yeah, I was doing the postcards and for Patreon and noticed that you're nearby. I missed some chat. Hold on. Try not to do this too much in live streams. I just want to make sure I get everyone. Yeah, okay, so to catch up, hey everyone who just joined us, we have over 100 people in the chat room. That's amazing. If you wouldn't mind giving this video a like if you're enjoying it, that'll help the video get found and whatnot. This Nickel Azo Yellow is beautiful and it has a gorgeous range. It reminds me a lot of quinacridone gold, actually. I mean, it's definitely more yellow, but it's got some beautiful tones here. And back to Otto with this Arulian, I wouldn't have guessed that it was only white and Nickel Azo Yellow to begin with, but it doesn't seem chalky. So I would be interested in playing more with this one. I think I gave you bigger dots, Otto, than I put on my own, so hopefully you have enough to play with it and let me know what you think of it. Question, I have all the introductory sets, but I think they're really lacking in traditional mixing palette colors. Any suggestions on what to round it out? Their introductory set of 12 actually has, I think, a fairly good range of colors for mixing, but this is my first look at anything that isn't in that set. So I can't make any recommendations now because I haven't seen all the colors yet. Thanks to Jenny Granberry. Again, if you joined us a little bit late, check out the link in the description below. She has a YouTube channel, and she very, very kindly sent me a crap ton of paints. So she wanted me to be able to have them to add to my online swatch resource that I'm working on. And I thought I would do this for you here on the channel as well. In person, the Nickel Azo Yellow doesn't look super close to Green Cold, but I do have 2 color spotlights on the channel for both of those colors, and they are very similar, especially in their mixes. So that would not be completely off track to say so. The Indian Yellow, I know, Tori, I just swatched that out and it's freaking gorgeous. I don't know that I would call it an Indian Yellow. It glows so much more than I'm used to seeing, and it's so much darker, but it's gorgeous. It's PY154 and PY150, as well as PR206. I am gonna have to try that one out. Julia asks if there's a big difference with the binder. From what I've noticed, it's mostly just that they flow a lot more. You can still use them interchangeably with other colors, and I have several core colors on my main studio palette mixed in with other brands, so they're totally fine to use with whatever you like. Oh, that's good to know, Otto. Yeah, it's definitely, it doesn't seem as opaque as I would expect it to be with PW6 being the first in the list. Thank you, Jennifer, for reminding everyone to use the word question. Ian, which one did you say looks like a gold ochre? The Perm Gamboge? I have paint on the back of this. Hold on, I don't want to get paint on my friend's tablecloth. There we go. Oh, the Indian Yellow? A little bit like an ochre. It's definitely more orange. How's that, guys? Is that not too hideous to look at? We'll use a little white border. So the Indian Yellow is more of a, I don't want to say flat because it's still a very vibrant color, but this is more matte and is more orange. The Permanent Gamboge is more like a Nickel Azo Yellow or a Quin Gold. Actually, I would say this is darn close to a Quin Gold. It's made from PY42, PV19, and PY150. Here's their quinacridone gold. We'll see that one here. And it is a bit more orange, I think, than most quinacridone golds. Like, I wouldn't look at this color and assume it was a quinacridone gold. But all of these colors are just beautiful. I love them. Let me get this square painted so I don't mess up my wash. I'm really enjoying this brush so far. Zach asks if I have any other resources for animal art. I love using Instagram to follow artists who have different mediums that they enjoy working with and different subjects that they enjoy working with. James Gurney is another artist here on YouTube that does a lot of farm animals, and Jennifer Charlie does a lot of animal and plant-based art, if you want to check her stuff out too. Oh, I missed a question. How do you know if the yellows lean more towards warm or cool tones? I actually have a new Skillshare class on color mixing that covers all of that in depth, but basically colors that are closer to orange are warmer and colors that are closer to green are cooler. So interesting how the different swatches look from the dried paint. Yes, so this is a good testament. I guess it's cool that you can see it all on the same sheet instead of me painting them out from pans to the paper, is that the color that you're seeing in the pan is very different. And typically the rule of thumb with watercolors is that the more transparent a color is, the darker it's going to look. So the reason these three look really, really dark is because the light is reflecting off of them differently because they're transparent. More opaque colors are going to look almost identical to the color that they are painted out. Candace asks if anyone else has had issues with rich green gold from Daniel Smith. I don't have that tube myself, but I know that the pan that I was sent by one of my patrons was kind of funky looking. So that's entirely possible. Some pigments just don't react the same way as others, and there's not always something that they can do about that. Thank you, Otto, for linking my Skillshare class. I appreciate that. I have lots of videos here on Patreon pointing to those videos too if you want to see previews of them. Ian, I might have missed the first part of whatever you mentioned. It looked like I am seeing the second part of a thought, and I can't really scroll back. Let me know if you were directed not at me or if it was just for chat. You can ignore me. Thank you, Otto. You're awesome. Oh, hey, Sarah. Welcome to the chat. It's nice to see you here. Question, what can you do to make paint stay in the pan better? Daniel Smith likes to fall out of plastic pans in particular. So you can use a little bit of glycerin to stick them back to the palette, or gum arabic or honey, but they just tend to do that. You can also just get them wet again and water will stick them down. You'll just have to keep doing that. The more you use them, the less they'll fall out. So I don't know why QoR does this. It's really confusing to me. Like, we went away from yellows and now we're back to, like, this is what I would call a primary yellow after doing some dark colors. So I don't know why. I just did them in the same order that they were in the book so that it was easy to read and everything. Let me go over a couple colors, and I know some of you are talking about them in the chat. So quinacridone gold, now that it's dried, is a lot less orange, and that is good. That's made from PO48 and PY150, which is the typical quinacridone gold mixture. We've got quinacridone gold deep, which is made from PO48. This is actually quinacridone burnt orange. So this is the PO48 that you're used to seeing as quinacridone burnt orange, versus their quinacridone burnt orange is made from PR206, which is usually called like quinacridone scarlet or something. So I hope that you can follow the train of thought there. Then we have Cad Yellow Deep, which is once again PY35, so it's the same as this other one, just processed differently. And then we have Diarylide Yellow, which I have to thank one of my patrons for. Steven sent this to me along with a gray paint that we'll see later. It is a beautiful warm yellow, and it's made from PY83. And this is one I want to try out a lot more as my warm yellow. I want to try replacing my PY65 with it and seeing how that goes. Otto says that Mission Gold's color chart makes 0 sense. I haven't looked at it lately, but that wouldn't surprise me. All right, I'm missing cadmium orange. That's not a color that I'm like dying to replace or anything. You guys, is the color okay? Is the exposure okay? Is it looking too dark? Hopefully you can see the colors as they are intended. Let me know. My monitor that I'm looking at right now is not great in terms of its color calibration. All right, next we have transparent pyrrole orange. This is somewhere in between the really, really bright version that you'll see that's very, very orange and Daniel Smith's version, which is more of a rich, warm red like type of color. So that one's interesting. It's also made from PO71. That color just varies a lot. Have you noticed the difference between Snilliers, pan, and tubes? Yep. They have to be made with a different formula or different processing because they have honey in them. And the tubes are too like liquidy to put as they are into pans. They either have the formula changed or the process changed, but they definitely are a little bit different. If you're having trouble with the pans, you can just put a drop of water on them or mist them before you get started, and they should re-wet just fine though. Next up is Cad Red Light, and this is made from PR 108. I don't know how many versions of PR 108 QoR has, but this is a pretty common color to be used in a lot of different red tones. I think Otto, is it Holbein that has like a billion versions of this color? I think it's Holbein. Ellen says that her Sennelier pans dry fine. I find that mine dry fine as well. They just don't look as pretty, I guess, as the hardened pans do. But I don't have any problem re-wetting them or transporting them at all. Next we have Pyrrole Red Light, which is PR 255. It's a beautiful, like, fire engine red. Oh my goodness, you guys, we're almost up to 150 in the chat now. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you're having a great morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is in your time zone. Has anyone else used these Studio Synthetics from Jackson's? I'm really enjoying them. I find that they hold just the right amount of water for swatches. Oh no! Otto says don't store your Sennelier tubes sideways. I was really worried about my M. Graham running if I tilted them sideways, and I finally got the guts to turn it sideways, and at least in San Jose, where it's very dry, they did okay. So I do store them on their sides, but if I lived anywhere more humid, I don't think I would be willing to try that gamble. Thank you, Paula, for reminding people to like the video if you're enjoying it. That does help a lot. Can you recommend a set of watercolor tubes for beginners or choose? Tabitha, if you want to check out, I have a video called Top 10 Favorite Watercolor Brands, and I talk all about my different recommendations in that video and why an artist would like a certain brand over another one. There's like a hair here, and I don't know. I don't know how to get it out. I'm just going to push it onto the paint block and hopefully we can still see the rest of the wash okay. In that video, I talk about why I would recommend certain brands over others. I tell you my favorite student brands. I also tell you how much I enjoy White Nights for an affordable starter brand. But if you get White Nights, I do recommend you pick out your own colors. I think I missed a lot. Possibly. Bolton asks if Jackson's are Senneliers. There is no confirmation of that, but that is the rumor. Yeah, Ian has a pan of Sennelier that refuses to dry. I would believe that. I'm sure it depends a lot on the pigment color that's used. Yeah, I do. White Nights has great paints, but I don't know why they pick certain colors for their sets. I don't know if it's just like an affordability thing, but you can buy them open stock on Jackson's. There's a link in the description below for you to do that. And they have beautiful transparent colors. You just have to pick them out, you know? All right, so catching up, we have Quinn Red Light, which is PR207. It's a very, very pale, transparent, orangey, pinkish type of red. Then we've got Pyro Red Medium, which is PR254. This is usually my go-to red, although I'm really liking this Pyro Red Light. I might have to give that a go. And then we've got Cad Red Medium, which is PR108. And then we have Cad Red Deep, which is also PR108. As you guys know, I don't really use cadmium colors, so I'm not an authority on the matter. But if you head over to Jenny Granberry's channel, who is the one who sent these paints over to me, she has some really cool QoR resources where she talks about the different color families. And I believe she has one on reds, and she'll talk to you about what she likes certain reds for. We have some people catching the live stream for the first time. Excellent. No apologies needed for being late. We'll be here. We're just watching some QoR watercolors. I'm gonna take a sip of water. All right, give a little shoulder stretch. We'll move up our swatch sheet so that we can get the good lighting. And then we have Pyro Red Deep. I think I need to switch my page in my catalog. Oops, sorry, I bumped the camera. Are we sure this is light enough, guys? I feel like the screen is really, really dark, but I don't want to ruin things. I didn't count up the exact number. I have almost the full range minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So whatever the full range is, minus 9. All right, if you guys promise that it looks fine, I will leave it alone. I think it's a little underexposed compared to my other videos, but I will trust you all and not make you sit here while I fiddle with everything. Okay, guys, this color is freaking gorgeous. This is PR264. They call it Pyro Red Deep. It's stunning. It is red. That is right. Red, red, red. Then we have Permanent Scarlet, which is PR168. I don't know that one. Anyone in chat know this one? It looks like an incredibly transparent color. It's Permanent Scarlet. Light Fast EX. What is EX for them? Hasn't been rated by the ASTM, but Golden rates it excellent. Do I know what is PR101? We haven't gotten to the PR101s yet. They're in the earth tones. We'll get there eventually. I know, Joe. The cobalt pigments are so beautiful. I really wish they were more eco-friendly. I don't know if this is a pyrrole or naphthol. I'm not familiar with the pigment number. I would have to do more research. I love that we have so many new faces in the live streams. Welcome. It's PR 186. 186. This next one they call quinacridone red. It's PV19. It's definitely pink. Definitely pink. Yeah, QoR is definitely interesting. I mentioned in that top 12 video I mentioned earlier, top 10 video on paint brands I mentioned earlier, that I really like them. They're much less predictable than other watercolors, just comparatively, but I don't think you can beat their vibrancy. They have incredibly gorgeous colors. And you can see here from all the swatches, they re-wet beautifully. I don't have any problem re-wetting them at all. Jennifer, do you like the Quin Red or the Permanent Alizarin Crimson? I'm guessing the quinacridone red. Seems more like your color. So PV19 varies from red to magenta. Da Vinci has a version that is used in their Alizarin Crimson permanent version, and it's actually this color. What do they make it with? QoR uses PR 177, but Da Vinci has a version of PV19 that's like that. It's really beautiful. It wouldn't surprise me if handprint doesn't have that pigment, just because I don't think it's a common color at all. Like I said, I've never heard of it, but Art is Creation might have it. Minty asks if QoRs are vegan. Yes. They use a synthetic ox gall that is a vegan product. They're pretty open about that stuff too. Always the cooler colors. I figured. How about this Quin Magenta, Jennifer? Oh, welcome. New to the whole channel. We've had a couple of those today. This is the Quin Magenta that we were talking about earlier in the stream and how beautiful it is. Super, super vibrant. $168. I'll have to look it up. I mean, I could look it up on my phone if we really want to see about it. I just don't want you guys to be bored, especially watching the replay. PR 168. Let's get to the bottom of this. Yes, this is made from PR 122, which is used to make a lot of Opera Rose colors. PR 168. For some reason, my phone thinks it's offline when it's not. I'm almost there. There we go. Yep, you got to it at the same time that I did. Anthraquinone Scarlet. Well, I do like my anthraquinone color, so that makes sense. Okay, I'll stop talking about researching pigments and we'll just keep painting. This is quinacridone Violet. And it's made from PV19, so you can see the difference between this PV19 and this PV19. This one looks almost like a PV55. Yes, QoR is owned by Golden. They are a very reputable paint company. I don't have ultramarine pink. We skipped that one, but I've got cobalt violet next. Cobalt violet is hard to re-wet in all brands, so I'm going to let some water sit on that for just a moment. We'll come back to it. And then I'm going to skip over to ultramarine violet. That might also need a moment to sit. And dioxazine purple sure doesn't. Someone asked about ultramarine versus French ultramarine earlier. French ultramarine is warmer. There's differences in the way they're processed too, but typically it's just that it's warmer in terms of actual practical application. I'm a big fan of the high chroma set from QoR. I see some people talking about it. Anthraquinone Scarlet from Ian Jackson. He says that it is a light, fast, semi-transparent, staining, moderately dark to valued, intense red-orange pigment. That's, where were we? Permanent Scarlet, this one here. It's super, super bright. It's pretty impressive how bright it is. I don't know if that is conveyed on the camera, but it's super, super bright. All right, Cobalt Violet is made from PV49. And like I mentioned, this is a color that's very, very difficult to re-wet across all brands. I'm gonna shake the table here a bit, sorry. Try and loosen this up so we can get some pigment here. This is one that I might suggest using from the tube, but I would suggest using it from the tube for most brands. M. Graham has a nice version that re-wets pretty well. No worries, Otto. Thank you for coming by. I hope you have a great evening. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy your color swatches too. Ultramarine Violet is PV15, another color that is hard to re-wet. Again, M. Graham has a really supple version of this color, but otherwise in most brands I suggest using it from the tube. You don't need to find them. We're here to learn. I'm swatching out QoR's watercolors just so you can see all the different colors. These Swatch With Me videos are really casual, and they are just so that you can have a resource to find colors that you want to spend your money on. So I have a Swatch With Me series across many different brands, and the reason I swatch them out for you is so that you have a comparison of what the colors look like to each other, and hopefully it helps you to make better informed decisions about what you're purchasing. Make sure you type question in caps before your question so I don't miss it. I think I just saw a question about buying a starter set versus open stock tubes. The starter sets are absolutely more affordable. If you want a general introductory set, they have a 12 color set. This swatch paper here is really, really crappy. I apologize. Like, this is really, really bad paper. But the introductory set of 12 is on the top line. I personally love their high chroma set, which is these 5 colors plus the Quin Magenta. So if you like bright colors, this is my favorite set. I'm not a big fan of the earth colors, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And I think they have a couple others. The indigo is made from, this is not a true indigo, it's made from PB15:3, PBK7, and PV19. This version is light fast rating of 2. We're gonna skip, nope, we're not. I have ultramarine blue over here. I didn't have anything left from the tube, so I'm just gonna take it out of the dried pan. Oh, I guess when I answered your question earlier about how many colors we're doing today, I was off because I was counting a few colors that I have in here. So I think I'm only missing like 5 colors, not 8 or 9 like I said before. Their ultramarine blue is amazing. Look how vibrant that is. It's so pretty. Ian asks, how many colors is a good balance in a set for me? I like sets that are between, I mean, 12 would be the smallest. I like 18 to 24. My studio palette is 30 colors. The palettes I use on a most day-to-day basis are those 18 pan sets from, or not pan sets, the 18 wells from Magello. All right, thanks for coming by, Jennifer. Have a good breakfast. I don't have the ultramarine blue violet, so I do have to skip that one, but then we have cobalt blue next. I'm not sure what the cadmium comment was in regards to, but Steven's right, cadmium is just naturally an opaque color. I do have PB15. It's in the pan. I don't have anything that I could pour on the paper from the tube. So I will swatch that from my set. Minnie Seastar asks about Magello. So I have the Pure Pigment set, the new one that they redid from the last time I did a video on that. I had a viewer send me dot cards of the first version of that set, and they've updated it since then with a better color selection, including single pigment earth colors. So I'm excited to check that out. I do like their colors in general. I think that they're really nice to work with. I enjoyed the brand in general. Susan asks if the core colors are staining. Anything that's more highly pigmented has a higher chance of staining. So in short, yes. Core and Imgram both tend to stain on average a little bit more than other brands, I think. Thank you, Marley. Question in caps, please. I don't want to miss your questions. I'm by myself today. Got no help. I think Ian's still here. If he has to go, though, it's totally fine. I don't want him to feel like he has to be here. Yes, Mission Gold's Yellow Ochre #1, I think it is, whatever the combination is like my least favorite color ever in watercolors. I hate it. But they have a single pigment version I'm excited to try out as well. All right, so let me catch up here. Sorry, I'm going between chat and swatching. I try and reduce that for the people who are watching this as a replay. I know it sounds exciting for you. Cobalt blue is PB28 like usual. This is actually a pretty nice version of this color. It has a nice granulation. Again, I do prefer to use ultramarine blue because it's less toxic and less harmful for the environment in terms of its sourcing. Cerulean blue chromium is made from PB36:1, which is another cobalt type color. It's a pretty hue. I don't see anything totally notable about the granulation in this one. Exactly. Rio says Mission Gold's Yellow Ochre #1 made me hate Yellow Ochre. Daniel Smith made me love it. Daniel Smith is great. Okay, I'm sorry, I do not have Indian Throne Blue. This is one I would love to be able to show you, but I don't have it. Do I prefer Phthalo Blue green shade or red shade? By hue, I prefer red shade. I think it's prettier, but in actual practice, I use green shade a lot more because I already have multiple warm blues on my palette. So I use Phthalo Blue green shade as my cool blue. Although, I have to say, I've been using a lot more of Phthalo Turquoise lately, PB16. And I actually have been preferring that lately. Here's Prussian blue, that odd duck that fades in the light but restores in protected shadeness or whatever. This is PB27. Steven, I don't know why I didn't have Indanthrone on my list. I think I was looking on something else, and that like maybe I just didn't put two and two together, because it's really odd that I wouldn't have asked for that. Steven is who helped me out with my yellow that we did earlier and a gray later on. Phthalo blue is over here. Oh, sorry. I bonked you all in the head with my brush. I really like the ultramarine blue from QoR. It's really pretty. Here's their phthalo blue, green shade. Joe is asking about my opinions on Prussian, if I've forgiven it, whatever. I still think it's a beautiful color. I don't know about UV glass. It's not something I have experience with, so I can't help with that part of the question. If you don't need to sell your work, or if you don't mind putting the disclaimer that it has that really weird interaction, there's no reason not to use it. Because I sell my originals, and I don't really want to go through that extra step of having to warn people about that color, I just personally don't want to use it, but totally fine if you use it. I think it's totally fine as long as you disclose that information. Really? Specifically in acrylics? I've used it in oil painting. I had no idea that it didn't happen in in acrylics. Is it difficult for me to answer questions or talk about pigments? I love talking about pigments, and I'll tell you whatever I know off the top of my head as being as true as I know it to be. If there's something I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. It's a little bit harder without my swatch binder here with me, but like I mentioned, I will answer whatever I can. Oh, Ellen has some information about testing the golden UV varnish. Turns fugitive colors light fast. It's pretty awesome. French cerulean is made from PB36. So I've actually never seen, this one is PB36:1. I've never seen the :1 denotation. But this is the more typical cerulean, and it has more granulation, so I'm already enjoying this one a little bit more. Question, are there lots of pigments with weird interactions? It'd be nice if someone transitioned more professional colors. I've talked about it in various videos, and can anyone help me out? If it's okay if you don't. If I don't remember my own videos, it's my own fault. I do remember specifically talking about stubborn colors. A lot of people think dioxazine violet is not trustworthy. I disagree. I did tests on 6 different brands, and they were all fine after 6 months in the sun. I know that it can be a more fugitive color, but I have not found it to be. Same thing with PG8. It's supposed to be a really fugitive color, but it's fine. Oh, you know where I talk about it? I do remember. In my Skillshare class, I have a little section about colors that are noteworthy in terms of if you should be careful about them or not. I knew I would remember it eventually. I don't know French cerulean, Ian. That's what they call it, but it's PB36, so it's going to be your typical cerulean. I too wish that PG8 was easier to source, Joe. So lovely. Oh, is it just hard for me to live stream? It is definitely hard for me to make the replay is interesting, and I always worry about that just because I want to make sure that it's watchable and that I'm not having too many pauses or too many ums or scrolling back through chat or whatever it is I'm doing. So I'm always worried about that. But I enjoy being here with you guys and answering your questions in live time. Have I found Dan Smith's Cobalt Turquoise to be hard to re-wet? Yeah, Cobalt Teal can be difficult to re-wet in some brands, but Daniel Smith's is probably one of the harder varieties. This is QoR's version. I find that theirs is more opaque than other brands, but it's also more pigmented. Theirs is made from PG50, as opposed to some brands use PG28. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoy the channel. Well, I'm guessing they were just trying to differentiate the cerulean blue chromium from the French cerulean and having different names. But yeah, I don't know why they chose that specifically. Their phthalo turquoise is not a single pigment. It is made from PB15:3 and PG7. Otto, who is no longer in the chat, she just did a video recently comparing phthalo turquoises. If you want to head over to her channel, she's doing a colossal color showdown where she's comparing different color names across different brands to see how they hold up. Paula doesn't mind when I pause. She likes to read the comments as well. And hopefully, if you're watching this on replay, hopefully the chat is also helpful. Like I know you can't comment, but you can still read the chat and kind of see where our minds were going and what's happening. How is QoR in general on rewetting? Like I said in this video, they do just fine. You can see it in real time. I haven't pre-wet any of these unless I specifically mention it. I had 2 colors that I let sit, but those are difficult colors, but all the other ones are absolutely fine to re-wet. I don't have any problem re-wetting them from a pan, even though I know that some people say that there is a problem. I already missed something. If you typed a question and I didn't read it, I don't want to scroll back because I have to change windows and it throws everything off. So go ahead and just copy and paste your question again. Oh, thank you, Susan. I'm so glad that you enjoy the channel. I agree, Bolton. Alizarin Crimson Genuine should stop being recommended because it is fugitive. I do mention that in the Skillshare class as well. Yeah, I haven't had a problem with Ingram's phthalo turquoise, but like Otto says in her video, she uses really cheap paper so that you can see all the hardships with them. If you're using a cotton paper, though, you shouldn't see that problem. All right, yes, this cobalt turquoise is really beautiful. I think I like it more than I like their cobalt teal. I mean, they're different, but the cobalt turquoise is just really lovely. It's made from PB36 as well. So that means that these 2 colors are made from the same pigment, which you can kind of see a relation, but this one is definitely much more green. All right, this page has gotten so wonky, I can't really turn it on its edge because the, the camera isn't a full page length above my workspace, but we'll have to try and get that flattened out for you guys again. I am not home, for those of you who don't know, so I'm not going to be able to scan these in right away, but in about a week and a half, if you are watching this either late or if you remember to come back to it, you can go ahead and go over to my Patreon and I'll make a free post with the scanned dot cards so you can see all those and refer back to them. Have I found Da Vinci paints hard to re-wet? They have a couple colors that are tricky, but for the most part, they're pretty good. I enjoyed them a lot. I've been using them for my 100 Eyes challenge. Jackson's does still sell alizarin crimson because I accidentally bought it. I thought it was a hue and it was not. Hello, Cajun Sunshine Crafts. Welcome to the stream. All right, we're on page 2 now. I gotta switch my QoR swatch book above me, but this should just be PG7. This is phthalo green blue shade. Do I find QoR to be very staining? Yeah, we already talked about that a little bit. Welcome, Cynthia. It's anything that's more pigmented is going to be more staining because the pigment particles are usually ground finder, which means they settle into the paper quicker. So mgram, QoR, both of those are going to be really highly staining brands. They're not inks. They're definitely pigments. They're just very finely ground and very pigmented. So they're going to be harder to re-wet or to lift. So this is the Viridian, and as you guys know, Viridian is hard to re-wet. I am painting this out right away just so you can see that you can still get a pretty good color payoff right away. And I'll just kind of coax a little bit darker tone out of here, but honestly, for a first pass at a Viridian, this is pretty impressive. So someone told me recently, I haven't verified this with a company yet, Joe, but I've heard that people saying that the word permanent is more about staining than it is about light fastness. I don't know if that's true. To me, it seems like that word should mean about light fastness, but I heard someone else say that it's not regarding that. It's about how well it stays on the paper. I don't know. Bolton, how harsh. Viridian is like a terrible phthalo green. I know that people throw around the word Viridian hue a lot with phthalo green. They're just different. This is a really soft, granulating green, and this is a really staining, transparent watercolor. So I'm not sure where that comparison started. To me, they're very, very different. To me, it's much closer to this cobalt turquoise that we were all just oohing and aahing over. I still like the cobalt turquoise better, but it's interesting how people put different things together, and that's very common. Like a lot of people say that Viridian is a worse phthalo green, but they're just so different to me that I don't really see the comparison. Yeah, you just like strong tinting strengths, and that's fine. That's why there's so many different colors. Exactly. We have a mention in here that a lot of the permanent colors are rated as light fastness too, and that's what I was always so confused about. I'm like, why are there so many permanent colors that are not light fast? That's weird. Question, do you often work out of the tube with stubborn to re-wet colors? If I really have to, I do, but I wouldn't call it often. I usually just reach for something that's easier to re-wet. Have I had trouble with Mission Gold's Burnt Sienna? Their 3-pigment blend, yep, it's horrible. I mean, it's fine on its own, but it doesn't mix appropriately. I do know that they have a single pigment version, and I haven't gotten to use that much, but I have it at home, and it's just waiting for my time to be able to take a look at it. This cobalt green is really pretty. It's similar to that cobalt turquoise that we did on the other page, but a little bit deeper in color. Really nice granulation. Yeah, I know. A lot of companies label phthalo green as Viridian, and that's wrong. They shouldn't do that. Kikonia says that cobalt green is the only core color they own. It's a good one. Oh, good. We have a confirmation that the single pigment Mission Gold Burnt Sienna is a good one. Yep, a lot of companies use PR 101 for their Burnt Sienna. Y'all know my feelings on that. I won't restate them here. You can actually see if you look closely, can you see the line in this Hooker's green? that can give you an indication of, we were talking about how staining they are. That was the straight pigment, and then I went to go get more water to tint it out. So yes, they are staining. But as we know, some people like that, and it lets you glaze better. They don't lift as easily when you're doing glazes. So if you want to do lots of glazing, use staining colors. If you want to do lots of lifting, use lifting colors. So someone was asking about Daniel Smith's Sap Green earlier. And when I first swatched out QoR's Sap Green, I was beside myself. I was so excited because it looked so similar. It's got that really deep glow and everything. But when it dried, it loses a lot of that glow. So we'll have to take a look at this again at the end of the video, and I can show you what it dries to, but it's a little bit deeper in color. But if you want something a little bit darker or richer than Daniel Smith's Sap Green, you can check it out. It also granulates a fair amount. See, I don't like bright green, so it's not my cup of tea, and I don't enjoy them, so... All right, where do we stop naming colors? This is PG7 and PY3, not a fan, to each their own. This is PG26. Hooker's Green is PY150 and PB60 and PR122. That's an interesting mixture. So it's got nickel azo yellow, indanthrone blue, and quinacridone magenta. Sap Green is PG36, which is phthalo green yellow shade. PR101, we don't know what version of that because there's lots of them. And PY150. So the glow is coming from the PY150. No, I don't think that there's a single pigment really for this one, except maybe some of the Daniel Smith Primatech colors get close. Between the green apatite. The green apatite genuine would probably be the closest to this, and then serpentine genuine's a little bit lighter. Will I be able to see the terre verte on the page as zero pigment is laid down? We'll have to see, won't we? I'll go ahead and put some water on it now. Wow, that's just a bead of water. It's not even trying to soak into that. I meant to bring that tube. I totally forgot. I don't have it with me. What is my favorite paint brand for maintaining vibrancy after they've dried? I guess Graham. The question's just a little bit odd. I don't usually go for straight vibrancy because I paint so many earth tones. But Graham is probably, Graham or QoR, like the one that we're working with now. Both of those hold a lot of vibrancy when they dry. Yeah, the Hooker's Green is really beautiful. I really like it. It's a little bit greener than a Perylene Green. Definitely lighter, but kind of in that same family of color. It bothers you that they don't have phthalo green yellow shade in their range. Yeah, that is weird. Usually that is an option. Chromium oxide green is PG17. It's a more opaque green. It dries pretty flat. It is. It's pretty transparent for what it is. You can get it to be opaque if you lay it down thickly enough. But it tints out really nicely if you don't enjoy the thickness of that. Hi, Lana. Then we have olive green. And this is PR101, PY184, and PG7. So these are all colors they do carry in their line. Oh, this is nice. It's somewhere between the Hookers and the Sap Green, which in my opinion means it should go up there, but you know, it's not my company. I will say, for someone, I know this is really specific, But I appreciate it as someone who doesn't care for really bright greens. They only have one, so I only have to swatch it once and the rest are all natural. Steph asks what I store my brushes in for travel. That's a good question. I actually just very poorly timed it to sell my traveling brush roll up to one of my patrons. I didn't even think about that I was coming here. So what I used for this trip is that I had just ordered these this really big brush from Jackson's. So I used the packaging that it came in. It's not super secure, but I put this inside of one of my zipper pouches, which is here. So, sorry, it's like really zoomed in. So I put that inside of this and then made sure it was traveling with me in my carry-on so it wouldn't get too jostled around. If you guys are interested in my zipper pouches, my Etsy shop is closed since I can't ship anything from here, but it'll be open on February 10th, and I have lots of bags in stock and ready to go, which I keep forgetting to mention on the channel, so I apologize for that, but they are back in stock. How can we mix a sap green? If you have a quinacridone gold hue, or quinacridone gold if you're lucky enough to have one of those, and PG7. So phthalo green and quinacridone gold. The bag had little alligators on it. I love that bag. I don't have any in this batch because he wasn't very popular, but I adore him. So that's the one I kept for myself. It's the only print I've ever made. All the other ones are just like a single image, but he was so tiny that I did a little print with him. Oh, thank you, Cosmic. I love dinosaurs, though. Absolutely love dinosaurs. If you love dinosaurs, you should check out Mary Sanch's channel. Sanch, S-A-N-C-H-E. She's part of the Animal Artist Collective, and she does a lot of dinosaur paintings. I love silver black velvet brushes, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend them for a beginner. They're very thirsty, very juicy brushes, and they're very soft and harder to control. So I would recommend using a synthetic, like this Jackson's brush. It's going to be easier to control. And then once you feel comfortable with that, then you can move on to the other one. But you might get frustrated with the silver black velvets right off the get-go. Cynthia, I'm glad you like your hippo bag. They are bigger on the inside. Those pouches hold so much. All right, they have an interesting color called Bohemian Earth Green. I can talk, I promise. It is a 4-color blend. I believe it is their only 4-color blend, and it's PBK7, PG7, PR101, and PY42. I don't know why, but if you like that color, then it's there for you. I'm gonna switch out my rag. This one's getting really wet. Oh my gosh, so many questions just popped up while I was reading the name of that. Have I ever tried to mix a version of sap green with PG7 and PO48? Yes, but it'll be too neutralized. So you need to add a little bit of a yellow tone to brighten it up. If you want that same tone, if you want it to be earthier, then that's fine. Question, is the Red Panda one of the bags you'll have in stock? Yes, I ordered like 20 of them this last time. I think half of them are gone, but there's still like at least 8 or 9 left, if not more. I really like the Van Dyke Green from Mission Gold. Is there another color like it? PBK7. Sorry, nope. PBK31. I don't know why I said PBK7, but PBK31 is Pearlane Green. I would recommend that one. I'm obsessed with silver black velvets, and I don't know a professional, like, I won't say professional. I don't know a YouTuber that is experienced with watercolor that doesn't like them. They're just harder to use for beginners because they're so soft. So I absolutely recommend them to anyone who is into the medium. I just wouldn't say that it should be your first brush. Unless you're really skilled in other art mediums and you're ready to use a super soft brush. But acrylics and oils would be using something super different from that because of the fact that you need stiffer brushes to hold that type of paint. Yes, they have a really transparent green gold. I don't think I did it justice here. It does get darker. So you can kind of see it hinting around the edges here that it does get much deeper. That's PY 129. They call theirs Titan Buff instead of Titanium Buff, which is PW 6:1. It's basically a dirty white. All right, thanks for coming by, Anon. Have a good one. You guys, the water drop on the Terravert is still just sitting there. It hasn't soaked in at all. That is one I might have to do from a tube when I get home. I mean, I'll still try, but it's not looking good. No! I'd eventually like to use this paper again. Their Naples yellow is PBR24, PBK7, and PW4. That's weird. I like PBR24. It's a really bright, goldeny, kind of like yellow ochre, but opaque, but in a good way. This one is that color, but also has black and white in it, which just seems bizarre. It's not real paint, Ian jokes. Oh, cool. I'm glad you like their green gold so much. Yeah, you could try the PG36 and PO48. I don't have those two colors with me on my trip, but you could try that. Do you recommend white nights? Yep, we talked about that earlier in the stream. I have a video on white nights. I think they're great, although I do think you should build your own set of them. The pre-made sets tend to be opaque and have less light fast colors, but they offer transparent and light fast colors, and they're beautiful. All right, we got something out of the Terravert. It's very gummy, but most are. It's made from PG23, if you're not familiar with that one. Rio, there's very little known about the brush industry. Like, they're not transparent about it. But yeah, you can't harvest like sable or mink without killing the animal. Like, they don't do it. So yes, it is harmful to animals. How they treat the animals, I don't know. I haven't been able to find information on that. If they were to do it in a humane way, it would be no different than like eating meat, but I don't know what their practices are, so I don't know what to tell you there. I'm sorry. I've tried to look in the past. People have asked for a video, and I just can't find enough information to make it possible. Yellow ochre actually turned out pretty nice. It's a bit opaque, but I really like the hue of it. It's made from PY43. Then we have a transparent yellow oxide. This is made from PY42. Ooh, I like it. It's a little harder to re-wet, but the color is really beautiful. It's super transparent. I have used watercolor ground, and actually, if you give me a second, my amazing friend Beth actually bought one of my pieces a while back that has it, so let me go grab it off the shelf real quick. All right, this was done on watercolor ground. So it's a piece of wood, and then I painted the front of it with white watercolor ground and then painted on top of it. It is less absorbent than paper, of course, so it is a little bit hard to work on, and you can kind of see a little bit of streaking in the darker color in the background. But it makes it really cool because you can paint on surfaces you wouldn't normally be able to paint on. So I have some of this at home. I've been meaning to make a video about it, and I will do that as soon as I can. Thank you. I did like a raccoon and a rhino and a lion. I actually think I have a couple still at home. I found them when I was getting my clay critters out of that box for the last video. So I have a couple still left over. They were in my Etsy shop originally, but they didn't get purchased. I think the listing expired. I didn't renew it. Whew, hold on. My heater is getting pretty toasty. Let's turn that off for now. It's not something I thought I would say during a stream. I've been freezing all week. Oh, thank you. All right, raw sienna is made, oh, interesting. This is also a PY43, not a PBR7. So it's like the yellow ochre, but more golden. It looks like a PBR7, even though it is a PBR, or PY42. There we go. PY43. I can talk, really. It's been an hour and a half, guys. I just need a little, maybe a little water break or something. I think the question is, have I used 300-pound watercolor paper? I have. It's very different. It feels too luxurious to me, and I'm always worried about messing up, and that makes me paint worse on it, just personally from a mindset standpoint. It's really pretty. You do have to get used to working with more water. So in that case, I would say use your silver black velvet brushes because it'll soak up all the water. I usually paint on 140 pound. They're both nice. It just is based on personal preference. The trans yellow oxide is very close to a gold ochre, yes. I drink out of my water glass, not my paint jar, luckily. They do have a transparent red oxide, so I'm trying to get a nice smooth wash here. It's a little bit difficult to get a smooth gradient, but it's a beautiful color. This is PR 101. Someone was asking about that earlier. Have I had trouble with Winsor & Newton's raw sienna? I don't know if I've tried the raw sienna. Was it in my video? Was it in my swatch with me video? I don't know. I've used their yellow ochre. I like their yellow ochre. Hey, Steve. How's it going? Is your video out or is it later today? I'm excited to watch it. Here we have Mars Orange Deep, which is another PR 101. This is interesting. It's kind of like a terracotta. Let me grab my Da Vinci palette. I can show you that real quick. It might make a little noise. This will not be in perfect focus, but do you see the terracotta here? That Mars Orange Deep is very similar. I think this is made from PR 102, although I could be wrong. So there are other brands that have it, but it's definitely a less common version of this pigment. Whoop, sorry. Okay, cool. Yeah, I saw it on Patreon, but I watched so much of my content like on a television that like it's hard for me to watch the Patreon videos unless I can get myself to a computer, which actually this week shouldn't be too difficult because I'm not home, but I'll absolutely watch it. I'm really excited about it. Here we have Venetian Red, which is a third version of PR 101. So here we actually have a really nice range between the transparent version to a moderately opaque version to the most opaque version. It's a nice little transition there. And then we have Burnt Sienna, which is PBR7. And it's actually looking okay here, but I have to say in my limited use of this color in other places, I'm not a huge fan of it. I feel like it's a bit chalky. Does anyone else have any thoughts on QoR's Burnt Sienna if you've used it much? Maybe that was just like the paper I was painting on or something. It looks fine here, but that was not my first impression of it for sure. I don't use enough water. The Titan brush will dry almost shiny with a hard coating. It sounds like you have, like it's separated from the binder, maybe? My swatch looks normal. I am spoiled with my Burnt Sienna choices. And I can admit when I've said things that are off in the past, like I really hated their Burnt Sienna when I swatched it out before, but it's not bothering me on this Arches paper, so that's definitely one I'll have to look into and see if I can make a painting with it and enjoy the process. This is transparent brown oxide, so it's very close to the transparent red oxide, except less red. It's made, also from PR101, so these two are the same pigment as well as those two. Well, now it's too cold. This heater needs to make up its mind. I don't know if a non-mod can link that for you, unfortunately, and I'm not going to be able to grab it. What were you looking for? Venetian Red always has a huge color shift, any brand. Yeah, Venetian Reds do that. They are very different when they dry. All right, we've got Burnt Umber up next. Sorry for my heater beeps. This is their Burnt Umber. It is also made from PBR7. Yes, Steve, PR101 has such a wide range. And it's always hard. We were talking about it earlier with the greens. It's used in a couple of the green formulations because we don't know what version they used. So you'd have to kind of play around with the different versions that they have and see which one gets you closest. Oh, okay. I don't know. I don't want to ask Ian to do anything crazy, but if Ian can get you a link, he can post it, but only a mod can post links in the chat. Then we have Raw Umber, and I actually have QoR's Raw Umber on my main palette. The first version I tried to use was Schminka, nope, not Schminka's, Sennelier's, and it was from a tube, and I hated the texture. So I think I only bought QoR, ironically, because it was on sale, and it was cheaper than Daniel Smith, which doesn't normally happen. QoR's a fairly expensive brand, but it was cheaper at the time, and I wanted to try it, so I bought it, and that's the one that I use on my main palette. I like that theirs is pretty earthy. It's not too green, and I don't like green browns. Ian, they were looking for the link for the Hanamule paper that you guys were talking about, the 420 GSM, but if you can't find it easily, please don't worry about it. The best place to find Hanamulla information just in general is on their website, and then they can link you to their retailers. They have a lot of different paper. Oh, this is interesting. Steve, are you still here? What do you think of this sepia? It's different. This is what I would think of when I think of like a sepia picture, but it's not what is typically referred to as sepia in watercolors. It's very bright. Very, very bright. Let me pull off my Da Vinci palette again. I can show you. Their sepia is like this dark brown versus this is so much brighter. QoR is an American brand. They're owned by Golden. Thank you guys for helping her find the, or helping them find the watercolor paper on Jackson's. All right, guys, we're in the final stretch. We've got blacks, grays, and some metallic colors. I'm excited about the metallic colors. They were weird. Has anyone used the QoR's metallic colors before? They were like fluffy. They were almost like a whipped consistency. The sepia, it's very yellowish, yeah. It's not like Quinn Gold, but it's a very yellow sepia. Exactly. Pretty color, but not really sepia. See, this is interesting because I would almost call this closer to like a Van Dyke brown. I like this color here better, which is PR, oh, another PR 101. They like their PR 101s here. The sepia, sorry I didn't read off the pigments for that one. That is PR 101. Oh, someone was sniffing up the right tree. PY 150, so there's a nickel azo yellow in it, which is why it looks so yellow, and PBK 7. So I would say without the PY 150, that's a pretty typical combination for a sepia, but they've added that yellow to it for whatever reason. Yeah, it has the PBK 7 in the PR 101, but also the PY 150. Then we have Carbon Black, which is PBK 7. Someone asked earlier if the QoR paints were vegan, and I gave you a blanketed answer. I said yes. I need to addend, like I need to put an asterisk on that. They're vegan except for their Ivory Black, which is never vegan. So the Carbon Black is made from like burning something and collecting the soot from it, and then the Ivory Black is made from animal bone. You'll see it's a much warmer black. Leans a little bit on the brown side. Mars Black is just a different black. I don't know how it's obtained. They don't have one in this line. I think it's PBK 11. And Artist Creation could probably tell you how it's manufactured. They're pretty good about that. No, there's no Mars Black. Do they carry it? I don't see it on their sheet. I don't think they have it. You're just back in time for the end of the stream. Yes. Payne's Gray from them is made with phthalo blue, PBK7, and PV19, which is a pretty standard mixture for Payne's Gray. I really love their Payne's Gray. It's a really deep, beautiful, rich color. I agree with you there, Alejandro. I do think their Van Dyke Brown looks like it's the hue of the Daniel Smith color that you mentioned, but this one has a weird texture to it. I don't love it. Oh, I'm not sure, Steve. I don't know the color well enough. It's one of those colors I've been wanting to research for a while, but I don't know the other names for it. I do know that Mars Black and Lunar Black are the same from Daniel Smith. All right, then we have neutral tint, which is different in every brand. I have never seen it made with PY42 before, though. So this has a yellow ochre in it, as well as Quin Magenta and Phthalo Blue. So I would be curious to use this as a neutral tint to deepen other colors and have them retain their vibrancy and see how they look. Typically, if I have a black type of pigment on my palette, it is a neutral tint, which isn't a single black pigment, obviously, but a combination. And then I use that as a black, but also to deepen other colors if needed. Yeah, it's a little bit purpley. I can definitely tell in person the yellow ochre influence, which is interesting since it also looks purpley, that it would also look a little yellowish because those are opposites, but I can tell that both are in there. The Payne's Gray? I mean, this is QoR's Payne's Gray. It might be your monitor. Some monitors lean a little bit blue. It's drying more neutral. It went down very blue, but it's drying a little bit more neutral. And I don't know how to say this one. Is it Ardoise? ARDOISE gray. It's PBK 19. And I was gonna look that up and I forgot to. Which black is that? Does anyone know offhand? I have it in a pan here. I'm re-wetting it. It's a little tricky to re-wet. Nick, I already talked about your question regarding the buff titanium. You can scroll back to see what I said about it. Aw. I hope your phone or your screen gets fixed. Okay, this is graphite gray. So Daniel Smith and Schmincke have a graphite gray as well. PBK 19, is that the graphite? Hey, Leanne. If it is graphite gray, it's not re-wetting with the same intensity that I've seen the other brands wet with. Oh, I just made that way worse. Yeah, I don't like the Van Dyke Brown. It dried really weird. The texture's off. All right, sorry guys, I should have looked this up ahead of time. If this is the graphite gray, this version is much weaker. It's not as pigmented. I definitely feel more binder influence, but I also heard that this color dries really liquidy, so it might be different out of the tube. It's not one that I have in a tube, so I won't be able to test that for you. Oh, PBK 10 is graphite. Slate gray, okay, then I haven't used that one before. It's very transparent, it's warm, and I would say it would be a really good color for an elephant. That's how I would describe that. Oh, you have this one but don't use it at all? I feel like you could really easily mix something like this with like a Jane's Gray. I know I just saw that in the chat, but like the PBR7 and PB20 or 29, yeah, ultramarine and burnt sienna. I don't know what this is in the Van Dyke brown, to be honest. I can try and swatch it out over here. I think it just has a really bad texture in its mass tone. It's very staining too. Do you see that line there? It just has an unpleasant texture in my opinion. I wouldn't call it like a traditional granulation. It just feels like the texture of the paint. On horseback, we talked about that earlier in the stream, and I also have a review down below. That's an older video that will tell you about my opinions on that. I don't think there's any difference between using them in a pan versus a tube, more so than any other brand. Any brand is going to be less intense from a pan, just period, but I don't think QoR is notably different in any way. Here's the titanium white. This is PW6. I don't have the Chinese white. Yeah, I agree with the Van Dyke brown. It's definitely more of an oxide, and it's made from PR 101, so it definitely is in that category. Nope, Bolton, they just released it. 2019 colors, they released a ton of grays. So you can find those in tubes. If they're not out yet, they're gonna be out real soon. All right, we have 3 iridescent colors. I don't have the tubes with me, so when I post onto Patreon later, I'll do some fresh swatches of those and also share them with you. These were really weird. I mentioned a little bit earlier before we got here that they had like a foam or whipped consistency, not foam, but like a whipped consistency. They were like really airy and fluffy out of the tube, and I had to kind of flatten them and mush them down, right, to travel with them. So they're going to be a bit different, and metallic colors are always going to be better straight from the tube. They're very hard to re-wet. They take a long time to re-wet, so this is not going to be the best example of them, but like I mentioned, I'll do a fresh swatch for you and show them off on my Patreon post when I get there. There is like a stray hair that's driving me crazy. On horseback, don't worry. That's fine. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to the channel. It's always hard when you're doing a stream because there's things that were mentioned before and whatnot. But yeah, I don't find any problem with them whatsoever. Overall, how are the earth tones? They're okay. I don't love them. I feel like they all have a bit of a weird texture, and I can only guess, I cannot say this with fact or anything, I can only guess that it's because of the binder, and they just sit differently in the suspension. I can try them from the tube and let you know what I think, but I've not been a fan of them, and actually I can see it more and more as I dry. Can you see all those earth tones and how they all have this type of texture to some degree? I would say the best ones, I do use the raw umber regularly. I would say these two are okay. I liked their ochres, and their Mars Orange Deep is really pretty. And the blacks are fine, but I'm not a big fan of the browns. How do you need anything more than 555? I'm not sure I understand, Marley. Is it Elaine? Eileen? Daniel Smith, hands down. I don't think anyone can compete with Daniel Smith's earth tones. They're just so beautiful. And that's probably why I consider them my favorite brand. I do like other brands' versions of like spectral colors better, but Daniel Smith's earth tones are just gorgeous, in my opinion. Don't go just yet. I know I'm near the end of the stream, but I have my 100 eyes challenge to show you as well, if you want to see that. And just have one more color after this one. I'll go over the different colors from the swatch with me as well. If you want to see that. And then the full color corrected scans will be on Patreon in about a week and a half. Don't leave just yet. Stick around. I'm glad you enjoyed the swatch with me though. All right. So while this page dries, I will show you the first page. I know, I'm sorry, Poodle Lover, I don't have the Indian Throne. Okay, this page is totally wonky. I don't know why it's so bent. I've mentioned the top 10 videos like 3 times already, so please go check that out if you want to know my opinion on different brands. Bye, Alejandro. So here are the colors. I'll just kind of go through them so you can see them. I'll let you know a few of the ones that I like best. Their Hansa Yellow is very, very bright for a lemon yellow. I really, really enjoyed the Diarylide and the Indian Yellow for warm yellows, and I think that they have a really beautiful, I really like this Permanent Gamboge. It feels very quinacridone gold to me. I don't have a direct swatch to show you, but it's very, very close. I know that PY3 isn't the most light fast, but I'm just saying this hue is really beautiful. We noted earlier that the Quin Gold Deep is actually quinacridone burnt orange, and that quinacridone burnt orange is quinacridone burnt scarlet. We've got a range of beautiful reds. I think they do reds really, really well, including, I know some people have been asking about granulating reds lately. I don't know that you would call this granulating, but there's definitely some beautiful texture in these ones here. I really like their Pyrrole Red. It's incredibly vibrant. And I love their Pyrrole Red Deep. It's just a really gorgeous, rich color. Their Permanent Alizarin Crimson, I believe we checked that right. It was a single pigment variety. They've got a gorgeous quinacridone magenta. It's really their only pink that they have, unless we want to, like, this is also kind of a pink color, but the Quin Magenta is really the pinkest color that they have. Their Cobalt Violet granulates tremendously. I don't know if that's coming across on camera, but it's really, really beautiful. Their Ultramarine Violet, not so much. They have a really, really blue version of indigo, so it's brighter than you might be expecting. Their Ultramarine Blue is incredibly vibrant. Sorry, I'm reading a little bit of the chat. Cobalt Blue is also super, super vibrant, but lighter in tone than Ultramarine. We've got our 2 ceruleans. I prefer the French cerulean. I think it has more texture and lays down better. Sorry, scooch that up. The Prussian Blue is pretty. Just note that all Prussian blues have that weird interaction. The Phthalo Blue is super vibrant. The Manganese Blue, I don't think we looked at the pigment for that one, right? It's probably a Phthalo Blue with white added to it, but let me double check that. Oh, interesting. It's noted as Phthalo Blue, Green Shade, and Phthalo Green, but that definitely has some white in it as well. They don't have to disclose that. Yes, these two do look very similar. This one is darker. Cobalt Teal is very, very green for them. And then their Phthalo Turquoise is also incredibly green. Usually Phthalo Turquoise has more blue in it than this. This one's a very green variety. The Cobalt Turquoise is really beautiful and granulates lovely. Yeah, I don't like having cobalt blue either, but that's because I also don't like to have cobalts unless they're irreplaceable. So I have some cobalt teals because there's no other color like it, but cobalt blue I happily replace with ultramarine. We've got phthalo green blue shade here, Viridian, which does have a weird texture to it. It had a little bit of separation here at the end of the brush stroke. Dioxazine Violet does have a big drying shift, but it glazes really well, so try glazing it if you're not happy with the intensity. We have a Permanent Green Light, which is very, very easily mixable. Unless you use this color all the time, I highly recommend not dedicating a palette well to this. It's just phthalo green and a yellow. In this case, it's PY3, so just mix your own, in my opinion. No worries. We've got Cobalt Green, which has some insane granulation going on. It's really, really pretty. Hooker's Green is kind of like a Pearling Green, but more vibrant, but a lot more vibrant. We've got the Sap Green, which you can see dried down a bit. It's a little bit more dull, but it is pretty close to that Daniel Smith Sap Green, relatively speaking from other brands. Terra Vert, we could barely see it. It's a very pale green color, but it's pretty. It's kind of in range of what I've seen from other brands. If you're having trouble with phthalo green, I see in the chat, try watching my, I know it's an old video, it's hard to watch, but the first one of my color spotlight series, we covered this color. I had taken it off my palette. I re-added it because it's an invaluable mixing color. I use it all the time, just never straight from the pan. So check that out. I use it to mix all my greens. It's beautiful. Chromium Oxide Green is more granulating and less opaque than in other versions. We've got Olive Green, which is a really pretty soft muted green. I wouldn't quite call it an olive green, but I like it better than most olive greens. We've got Bohemian Green Earth, which is more of an olive green, but made from 4 pigments in this brand. The Green Gold is a really lovely, light, bright, transparent color. This one doesn't show the full depth of it, but it gets darker than this. I don't use titanium buff or buff titanium very often, but I know a lot of artists who do, and their version is really, really nice. We've got some nice ochre type colors. We've got a standard yellow ochre, a transparent version, and then a raw sienna as well. We've got the range of PR 101s, the burnt sienna, the burnt umber. I think they're all just a little heavy. The only one that I really enjoy the texture of is that Mars Orange Deep. The raw umber I use all the time. I do like that one. Sepia is very yellow. We've got a small range of blacks, which I think is really all you need, although it would be nice to see a Mars black from them since it's so different. We have the interesting gray color there, and then we've got our metallics, which I can tilt a bit so you can see the shimmer, and they would be even more opaque straight from the tube. They are foamy though. I don't know how that would work out in terms of painting. So I agree that Nickel Azo Yellow and Green Gold do make some very, very lovely greens. I highly recommend them. And before you go, I know we've lost a few people, but before we go, I'll show you my Animal Eyes challenge. I just have to make a little bit of room. And I might have to pull the camera back. We'll see. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to move the camera. Don't get motion sickness. I started a hashtag over on Instagram. Is that in focus? That doesn't look in focus. Hold on. You guys gotta see these. They're so nice. I really enjoyed this. There we go. That should be better. Little sharper for you. So I started the 100 Animal Eyes challenge based on, there's dozens of other challenges. The one I was specifically inspired by was Arlisha's versions of hashtag Meds 100 Heads. So there's another artist who started a 100 Heads challenge, and I wanted to do one that fit what I like to paint. So I started an Animal Eyes one. So I went ahead. Oh, you're right. I didn't do an eye, and I should have because I did a primate day. Thanks, Steve. I'm glad you like them. So on day 1, I did felines and canines, and this admittedly is my favorite day so far just because there's the most variety on this day. It was really fun getting the different iris colors and the fur textures. I really, really enjoyed it. The second day was a little harder. I chose to do them based on what Instagram mentioned. They wanted me to do groupings of animals so we could see similarities and differences. So I did other feliforms and caniforms, which are cat-like and dog-like animals. But what I found in this one is that the shapes of the eyes and the colors of the eyes were all very similar. It was really hard to find a variety of animals to show off different features. I'm going to be putting together a huge blog post, I guess, for my patrons on this when I get home. I'm going to do full scans of everything and talk about the similarities and differences and what I used for my references and trying to pull things together. So I'm excited to do that, and my patrons will have access to that. The day after that, I did primates. This one was another hard day for me. A lot of the eyes are very similar, but I really, really enjoyed the Japanese macaque and the tarsier. I can never say that right. I also really like the chimp eye and the gorilla eye, so that one was really fun. And then yesterday, I did ungulates. It's killing me that this is off center. I want it to be like a centimeter this direction so it fills the page a little nicer. But this one I had a little bit more variety. A lot of this kind of like bluish gray color, which was really interesting to see. And then today, I haven't started yet, but I have found all my reference material. I'm going to be working on other mammals. So kind of just a bunch of different mammals that weren't covered in the other categories, and I'll be posting those over to Instagram. You can follow me in my stories at In Liquid Color. You can follow along in whatever oh, thank you. Oh, ungulates, you like ungulates? I can leave it on the ungulates page if you want to look at them. You can follow along with whatever pace you want. I'm doing 100 eyes in 10 work days. I'm going to take the weekend off because I'm visiting my friend and I want to spend time with her once she's off of work. But next Monday through Friday, I'll be doing reptiles, birds, amphibians, insects. And on Friday, next Friday, I'm going to be doing a viewer's choice. So you guys get to choose. I'm going to do another live stream. I have to plan the eyes before that. So in the comments below this video, when it goes live, let me know what eyes you want to see. I will pick my 10 favorites for that last page and to show off the most variety, and we'll paint some of the last eyes together. The whole thing takes me about 4 to 5 hours a day to do, so I won't be able to do everything on stream, but I'll make sure that we do a little bit of everything, and I'll show you my process for those. So make sure that if you want to participate, you use the hashtag 100animaleyes. I'm sharing my favorites every day in my stories, and I would love to see what you create too. I get this question a lot. I mention it in literally every single video I do that uses it, but if you don't know, I use Dr. PH Martin's Bleed Proof White for my highlights. It is in my Amazon shop. Link is in the description below. You can find it. I'll scroll through the chat real quick before I go so that I can answer any last minute questions. And thank you guys so much for joining me today for our look at QoR. I hope you join us for the 100 Animal Eyes Challenge. And I've loved having you here and hope to see you next Friday. So let me just scroll back a little bit. Ooh, I missed a lot. Oh, you guys are so kind. Thank you. We have a question asking, do I plan to make a lemur eye? I do. I don't know how. Okay, I do know how. I forgot it in the in the planning stages. I had it in my photos, but it was in a different collection, and I forgot to add it to my final folder. I've been making folders for the eyes when I do planning, so I wasn't able to get it in because I forgot. So I'm going to do that one on the last day for sure. I'm glad you like the reflections, everyone. I do love granulating paints. I don't usually use them in eyes or like skin tones, but I use them a lot for my animal paintings. Thank you for staying for the whole stream. I really appreciate it. And I think that's a bit about it. Thank you so much to my mods for being here. Thanks to Ian who stuck around. for the whole thing. You guys are amazing. Thank you to everyone who visited. Thank you to my patrons for helping to support me. I have a hard time editing these streams because they're so fun and I love hanging out with you guys. Thank you, Steve, for coming. And I will see you in my next video next Friday. And until then, happy painting.